once upon a time, a long time ago, in a village that was neither too big nor too small, there was an old couple who lived together in a house that was near a field. And they were neither too rich nor too poor, but they always had enough food and a warm home and enough to share. And they loved to share their home, and they loved to share food, especially with the children in the village. And they loved it when they would come to their house. Those kids knew that at that house they could always get a warm drink and a little treat if they came by. And so they were always generous with anyone who came to their home. However, they didn't have a child of their own, and deep down, they really wished that they did. They wished that they had their own little boy or girl that they could tuck in at night, their own little boy or girl whose knees they could mend when they scraped them, and their own little boy or girl to tell stories to. However, that's just not what happened. They did not have a child. But they continued to have their home open, and kids would come by, and one day, right after a big troop of kids had come by and had some hot cocoa and left to go play, the husband saw the wife sitting there at the window looking kind of longingly at them as they played in the snow. And he saw a little tear form in her eye. So he came up and he put his arm around her, and he watched the children play with her. And he saw that they were building snowmen. And that's when he had an idea. He said, "Come, honey, let's go. Let's go build ourselves a snow child of our very own." And so they went outside laughing, they bundled up, and they built a little snowman. They rolled up the first piece, and then they rolled up the second to put on top, and then they rolled up a little head and smoothed it all just so it looked like a real dress on her, and smoothed her hair just so it looked like two braids. And they laughed, and they played, and they sank into the ground and sighed. Well, the sun was going down, probably good to go and have some dinner, so they went back inside their house, made dinner, as the sun went down. But before they went to bed, they decided they were going to go outside, and they were going to sing a little lullaby and tuck in their snow child. So the moon was shining, and they walked outside. They sang to her. They were getting ready to go goodbye. But then they each decided to hug her, one from each side. And while they rested their cheek on the top of her head, each had a little tear fall from their eyes. And they fell right to where her eyes were. And at that moment, they opened. As they were walking away, they thought they heard something behind them, but assumed it was just the trees. But then they also heard a little laugh, and it sounded kind of like the tinkling of icicles. And as they turned around, it was more than just a trick of the light through the trees. There was a girl there, and she was dancing in the snow. Her dress was blue like mine, but when she turned, it kind of sparkled in the moonlight, kind of like little snowflakes do. Well, what could they do? They welcomed her into their home, and she was a lovely daughter. She was always very helpful around the home, and she loved playing with the other children in the village. However, they did notice there were some peculiar things about her. For example, although she, like I said, she was very willing to be helpful and help her mother with any chore, but whenever it had something to do with the hearth, she would kind of shy away. Whenever the doors of the hearth would open, she would, in order to access how they would cook pots over the fire way back when, she was known to rush from the room and go out into the passageway by the door to warm herself or to cool herself down until she felt better again. Also, when the spring came, I think she was the only one who wasn't very happy to see the snow melt and to see the flowers come up. And all the children wanted to play outside all the more, but she really preferred to just stay inside. But the children missed her. They would come by and they would urge her to come. "Please come and play with us. Why don't you play with us anymore?" And all the nagging and all the begging, eventually she decided to try. It was kind of a cloudy day, so it seemed rather safe. And they all went out and they went to the forest. And there it was cooler in the forest, and she felt all right. They played and they ran and played hide and seek in the trees. But then the other children wanted to build a fire. And this is a game that is sometimes used to be played where they would make a fire and jump over it. So that is what the children wanted to do. So all the kids had taken their turn, and they were looking to her and they were begging her, and they were just like, come on, please, it's your turn. So she steeled herself and she backed up a little, and she figured if she just ran really fast, it would probably all be okay. But as she came up and approached the fire, and right as she was leaping just above it, she melted and evaporated instantly and became a little cloud. The kids were sad. They began to cry, but then they heard this little voice that said, don't worry, I'll come back next year in the winter.